Okay, there we go, and we're live. And this is a little bit of late night weekend talk about the SlowFood Sinatra application. And now that I have you here, I can just show you what I've done on the app so far. Uh, I just reused a very simple template from some guys that made it available, and it's based on the Foundation CSS framework. And I've tweaked it a little bit. So now, if I want to register, I have a model popping up, so I can register a new account using that. I can log in using the same, very similar setting, uh, and it says "Welcome to Slow for Thomas," and there's a flash popping up here. I can add some stuff to my orders, and I have uh, also, if there is an order, I show that on top of my page. And let me just add another thing here. And I can click on checkout, and I can review my order in this in a very similar model. And I can confirm my order. And we're just getting thank you for your business, and confirm pickup time is at some point. And if we go to my mail client, we can see that there is a new order from me saying that I ordered something and needs to pay on pickup. Of course, there's some typo here or grammatical errors in the pickup time here. So at this point, what I'm doing is that I'm in my controller here. When last time when we spoke, I just made a comment that I need to send an email to the restaurant. So what I've actually done is that I added this send emails, which could be refactored to method, and I'm passing in a hash saying that the customer should be the email to the current user that is logged in, and then the restaurant is, in this case, Thomas at Craft Academy SC, because I don't have a restaurant. Right. So the send email thing is this, and it's making use of another method called compose body. And let me just talk you through this. So the send email method is based on a gem called SendGrid Ruby, and SendGrid is a software as a service, basically an application that you can sign up for that will allow you to send emails. And SendGrid has an API that is made available to us in the SendGrid Ruby gem, basically. And of course, what you have to do in order to get that to work, you have to include the SendGrid Ruby gem in your gem file, and run bundle. Okay. However, well, however, let's start from start. Like if we check out SendGrid documentation on Heroku, we are routed over to a very uh, nice article that I will share with you guys. It's so Heroku. So SendGrid is an independent service, but they are collaborating with Heroku, and they have made SendGrid available for us developers as an add-on to Heroku, or on Heroku. And there are very step-by-step the instructions here how one can add this if you have Heroku CLI installed on your computer, and you can access Heroku from your terminal. And basically, you have to obtain an API key. First thing you have to do is to add SendGrid as an add-on to your application. You have to get the SendGrid username and password, and you have to obtain an API key. And in order to do that, there's a link here to the SendGrid dashboard that you need to log into. Like this, you have to log in, and you get those different API keys for you guys to use. my API key, Ruby test, etc., right? Uh, and I put, oh, hold on a second. Yeah, here we are. So once you've done that, you can jump down to the Ruby documentation. There are some code snippets for quite a few languages here. Of course, since you are working with Ruby, you want to check out the Ruby documentation. And again, it says here that you need to include the gem in your gem file. You have to bundle, of course. You have to require the send grid inside of your main controller and include it in your main class. And then you need to do a few setup. I mean, when you actually want to send the email, you have to do certain things. And so this is the first time I've done this. So I just looked on this code snippet that you guys see here. I tapped into my main environment RB and required SendGrid here and included it in my main class that I have that I build the entire app around. But also in my orders controller, I kind of basically mimicked the way they did it in the documentation from attribute to attribute, a subject that we need to include in the email. I have the content of the email as text HTML. I didn't want to go for the plain text format, but I rather wanted to HTML. And here I'm calling on the compose body method, where I'm just basically creating a string of HTML by iterating over the products and keep adding it to the string and returning that. So that string email body will become the part of the content variable that we're creating here. And then finally on line 39, we're composing the email and storing it in the mail in a mail variable, and that is mail new from subject to and content, right? All of these variables that we set up here. Then finally, we are creating a mailer, which is the SendGrid API client. And if we are in production, this is what this if-else blocks does. If we're in production, we're actually sending off that email. But if we are in test on our development, we're not sending off an email. I don't want to keep on sending emails during my test runs, basically. I assume that makes sense. Here, I can uncomment this, and this will actually send emails while I'm running my Cucumber scenarios. But I have it commented out because I don't think sending emails in test environment is a good idea unless I really want to try that. So that's why I had it commented out. Otherwise, it just outputs this email in my terminal as a JSON string. One thing that is extremely important while working with this kind of add-ons is to keep your credentials very safe and not expose them on the internet, and definitely not to expose them in version control. And locally on your machine, what we usually do is that we make use of a gem called .env, and this is extremely important. .env gem allows us to store something we refer to as environmental variables, right? So I can store a set of variables here in my .env file. However, it is very important that this file is not checked in version control, but rather excluded from it in the git ignore file. That is I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. If you check in your API credentials, whatever API that is, whether it's SendGrid or something else, you might get in trouble for abuse of that API. Just to clarify, and emphasize this enough. I mistakenly checked in my Amazon Web Services credentials at some point, and ended up with an invoice of almost $4,000. So do not check in your credentials under version controls, because the internet is full of bad people that want to exploit your credentials whenever they can. So making use of the .env file and storing your credentials in that file, but also making sure that this file is excluded from version control in your git ignore is very, very important. Now, what we do in our main controller is that we are making use of this requirement where we say require .env and load. So it not only requires the library, but it also loads all the environmental variables that we have stored in this .env file. But that goes for your local host only. On your Heroku dashboard, if you navigate to the app that we are working on at this point, let me just pop that open. Let's see, what do we have? We have SlowFood Sinatra application. If we go to settings, there is a section here about config variables. And here we have those variables stored as well. Okay, so the .env file is only used when you run your application in development on your own machine. If you run it on Heroku, here's the place where you set those env variables. And if you run it on any other server that you will be doing later on in the camp, there are different other ways to set those variables. But basically, env variables are often used to store sensitive data as this kind of thing. So they are very important. All right. So what happens now is that whenever this finalized method is being called, and in my case, because they refactored this method to only be runnable when there is a current user, which means whenever there's a user logged into the system. Otherwise, we're just basically redirecting him and telling him that he needs to log in before finalizing his order. But if everything works out and the user finalizes his order, we are sending off this email to the restaurant, which is in this case my inbox. We are clearing off the session from order ID, and we are pushing up or rendering the finalized ERB. Okay, so I made a small change now in my code before I committed. Git log. My last commit is minor refactoring. Yes, good. So what I would like to do now is just to show you how easily we can push stuff over to Heroku. I am actually on my user profile branch, and I would like to see that branch on Heroku. So I push the user profile branch to the master on the remote server and run this command, and that updates everything on my server. And basically what I've done is I shuffled a few elements around, so there are not any no big changes, but enough for me to wanted to show you this. So here we are, and I have no order now. So I moved the flash a bit. So let's see what happens when we order. Yeah, so I put it up on the top of the page now. If I log out, what happens? You're no longer logged in. I can log in like this. Good. And now I check out, confirm my order, and that's it. But no notice has been displayed. So I guess I need to work on that a little more. Right. So the SendGrid documentation here is really important. I will send you that link so you can check out that article. And of course, uh, checking out this video and my code on my repository may also help you if you get stuck a little bit on that. Do you have any questions, people? No questions? Good stuff.
No, I think it's all good. I just have one question about for us now working on the application. Like, how far should we be by tomorrow with completing it?
You should give it a rest in like 45 minutes or a half an hour. Just don't worry about it.
Okay.
Is it okay? I mean, now basically we have a basic front end that shows something and the very basic features that we have. Should we deploy that, or what do you prefer? That
you should definitely deploy. You should definitely deploy.
Just even to try to deploy, you know what I mean? It's like even if it just does register user. But
Look. You should have deployed as soon as you had anything working. You know.
Okay.
I mean, whatever works. You need to deploy. We usually encourage all of you guys to deploy as soon as there is anything working, because you will get into some troubles when deploying. It's not that it's easy. It looks extremely easy when we do it, but there are some details that you need to think about, and if you've never done it, it might prove a bit complicated. You know.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to do our best.
Yeah.
So you should definitely deploy as soon as possible. All right.
Okay.
And don't guys, don't overdo this. It's we will do a project retrospective tomorrow, and the important thing is that you've learned a lot, and I know that you've learned a lot, but it's even more important that you guys can see that you've learned stuff. And also, what we want you to acknowledge is what other stuff can you learn from this experience, and what insight can you bring into the next project that you will be dealing with next week, basically. So do not overdo this. I mean, again, being ambitious is good, and finalizing a lot of features is awesome, but I remember there's what is it, like 8 weeks left or 9 weeks left of the camp. So don't kill yourself, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Thomas.
All right, no drama. Take it easy. I make this recording available for the rest of the guys.
Thanks.
Okay, cheers. Bye bye.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye.
Tadej,